All right, ladies and gentlemen, I'm here with Angus Taylor, the Minister for Energy and Emission Reduction?
That's right.
Emission Reductions. And he's got some great news today. What's the news, Angus?
Well, today we got official numbers on smashing our Kyoto targets. We've beaten them by 459 million tonnes, which is about a year's worth of emissions, just under a year's worth of emissions. So an extraordinary achievement. We're 16.6% down in our emissions since 2005, on target to get our 2030 target of 26% emission reduction. And we've done all this through technology, not taxation. This is the critical point. We got rid of the carbon tax, and yet we've beaten Labor's own carbon forecast for this year by 25%.
So when did they made that forecast in 2010?
Back in 2012,
yep.
Before we got into government, they forecast that this year we'd be at 635 million tonnes. We're down at 513 million tonnes, which is an extraordinary achievement.
Now the naysayers will say, yeah, but that's COVID related and you haven't had, planes flying and stuff like that. Is it possible to break those reductions out?
Yeah, well, almost none of that was COVID related. This is 12 years. Kyoto began in 2008
yep.
through to 2020. It's in two phases. And it finished on June 30. So COVID had almost nothing to do with it. This is actually about Australia just doing an extraordinary job, enterprising Australians, getting on with the job of energy efficiency, putting solar on their roofs, farmers doing fantastic things with the way they're managing their land, all of that, bringing down emissions and smashing our targets. Very few countries in the world can boast what we have. If you look at, say, Canada or New Zealand, their emissions have barely fallen, when ours have fallen more than 16%.
Wow. So, like internationally, globally, we're like at the top of the pack.
Absolutely at the top of the pack.
Okay.
It's an extraordinary achievement. Australians should be proud of it.
Yep.
We do it in our own way.
Yep.
We don't become central planners. We don't tell people how to run their businesses. We allow them to deploy those technologies. We're fast adopters. We've seen that with household solar, for instance, where we're absolutely leading the world and we're smashing our targets.
Now, one of the things about the technology roadmap, and a point that you've made, is when people think climate change, they think solar panels. But it's a lot more than that, isn't it?
Well, the challenge now is outside the electricity grid. Emissions have come down over 5% in the last 12 months in the national electricity market, which is an extraordinary reduction. But that's only...
And that's just in the last year, 5%
in the last year.
Yep.
But that's only about a third of our emissions.
Okay.
2/3 are in industry, in agriculture, in transport, and that's why we're so focused on technologies like hydrogen, low emission steel and aluminium, stored energy, soil carbon, carbon capture and storage. All of those technologies offer great prospects for seeing the same emissions reductions we've seen recently in the electricity grid out in other areas of industry and agriculture and so on.
Okay. And what do you, like when you look at the future, what's the one piece of technology that you think's going to have, that no one's talking about, that you think will have the greatest impact?
Well, the thing about technology, it's always hard to predict.
Yep.
The thing I'd say though is we're investing in a portfolio, a range of technologies. Hydrogen's clearly a really important one, there's no doubt about that, because it can play a role in transport, in industry, even in agriculture, because that's where our fertiliser's made. So that's a crucial technology. But, we'll invest in a portfolio because that's always the best way of getting a good outcome. That's exactly what we've done with the vaccines.
Yep.
That's the right way to think about this.
What's your favourite though?
I think hydrogen has enormous potential.
Okay,
There's no
hydrogen.
question about
Right.
that. Soil carbon too, from the
Yep.
farming side, for farmers, this is a combination of being able to raise productivity and absorb carbon. That's a technology that really has phenomenal potential for Australia as well.
I've gone way over time. I've just got one last question about nuclear.
Yep.
Everywhere you go, there's a group of people who say, look, it's a tried and tested technology, it's emissions free. Why aren't we looking at more of that?
Well, traditional nukes are expensive. They high capital cost, and that comes through in your electricity price. We've seen this in the UK. The latest nuclear generator they're building is coming in way over cost and very expensive. However, there's an emerging technology, small modular reactors, which offers real potential. Only 3 been built so far, all in the developing world, but we're going to see more built in the coming years, and we're going to watch that very closely.
Fantastic. Gus, thank you so much.
Good man.
Speak to you later.
Authorised by Jason Falinski, Liberal Party, Narrabeen.